Good afternoon. Welcome to the marketplace. Coming up, members of the Locked Up Investment Holders Forum hold protests to demand payment of their funds.
That for 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, these people cannot work and they are insolvent. They revoke their licenses and take over the depositors' funds and pay us.
Also coming up, Finance Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam charges Ghana Investment Promotion Center to be heavy on domestic investments to support government's agenda for macroeconomic stability.
I want the conversation to be deepened around domestic investments as well, especially faced with the kind of global challenges that we have today.
Plus, the Ghana Integrated Aluminum Development Corporation hosts and its international partner, Mytilinos SA, reaffirmed commitment to long-term partnership with host communities as they get set to begin exploration of bauxite in the Ashanti region.
The partnership means that every arm of this relationship has to be strengthened. A key arm is the business community here.
Well, first up this afternoon, members of the Locked Up Investment Holders Forum have held protests to demand payment of their funds. The group a year ago began engagement with the Bank of Ghana to help them redeem their investments from the financial houses and savings and loans companies, but the group protested today because they said the central bank has not done enough to resolve the matter. Convener of the group, Dr. Eduanane Entry, says they want the central bank to take over the financial institutions and pay customers their investments.
Petition is already with them since November, and we are just going to find out what is the governor doing about the petition and the proposal we have submitted for the resolution of this matter.
There are some key highlights in that petition and
the proposal, as we have proposed, two methods or approaches. Either you give them money, these institutions that are not able to operate, NDK Financial Services, SDC Financial Services, SIC Life Savings and Loans, and Bond Savings and Loans. Give them support. Find some money. We have said that they should be talking to the development partners to allow them to even use part of the stability fund to do this kind of exercise. Give them some money, which can cover about 20% of investors' funds there, so that investors get about 20% of their funds. The rest, we are prepared to convert it into, let's say, a 4 or 3 year bond. And we are also prepared to even convert the balance into equity in those organizations. Restructure the organizations and let them work so that they can also continue to employ people. If you think that their services are no longer needed in this economy, then your law says, even if you foresee that in the next 6 months, someone will become insolvent, start the resolution process. So if you see that for 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, these people cannot work and they are insolvent, then revoke their licenses and take over the depositors' funds and pay us, as you did in 2017, 2018, when similar institutions, you revoke their license and you pay investors. We demand the same. That's all.
I mean, what will get you to back down?
Nothing. It's solution that will get us to stop. Until we get a solution, every 2 weeks we are doing this, and we will do it till ending. Allow the December for elections and Christmas. Then January we come for the second leg.
Finally, do we know the total number of the members of the group and how much has been locked up?
We know, but what is locked up, we don't know, because all the financial institutions have their reports to Bank of Ghana. Bank of Ghana can determine that so far, this is a quantum of amount that are locked up that I should find money to pay.
So how many are you?
We are, NDK alone has more than 6,000 clients. The rest, I can't put a figure on it. So if one organization alone has more than 6,000, then list 4, you can imagine.
We saw that interview with Dr. Nanenchi, who is the convener of the Locked Up Investment Holders Forum. We understand right now at the Finance Ministry that there is a clash sort of with security personnel because the security personnel are not allowing members of the forum to enter the Finance Ministry. We are trying real hard to connect with my colleague James Aveji, who is currently at the Finance Ministry for us. When we are able to establish contact with him, we'll speak with him. But banking analyst Dr. Richmond is on Zoom with me. Thank you so much for joining me. What do you make of what we are seeing unfold at the Ministry of Finance and earlier at the Bank of Ghana, where the Locked Up Investment Holders Forum is asking for the payment of their funds, which have delayed for months now?
Thank you very much, Daryl. Thank you very much. And good afternoon to your cherished listeners and viewers. I think the financial sector reform, the one that happened in 2017, I don't think we took our time and went through systematically. Because all these institutions you are mentioning, at that time were at the verge of being insolvent. But we have kept so long a time that I wonder, why has it taken us so long a time to go into resolution of these issues? I would urge the Security and Exchange Commission and the Bank of Ghana to sit down with the Minister of Finance to resolve these issues as soon as possible. If you remember, the Gold Coast people had also the same issue. Yeah. It means that the financial sector cleanup, for me, it wasn't done very systematically and proactively. That is why we have all these things happening aftermath. If we have taken our time, considering what the then finance minister said, I remember in some literature, he said he spent 26 billion. But as I speak to you today, nobody can tell us, segregate the amount that was used for this institution or that institution. And these are questions that I've always been asking. Why is Parliament not calling for the detailed segregation of payment so that we will know those who are outstanding and those who are? It is rather unfortunate that having done this only 2 years, 3 years ago, we're now being called upon to look at the other issues. Anytime we want to take this decision, I think the regulators, not one regulator, the regulators should sit down with the Minister of Finance and look at the resolution process and also the availability of funds to pay these people. It is very, very unfortunate because for 3 years, people's money has locked out. It is very difficult for them. So I believe the finance minister, the new finance minister, and the regulators should sit down and see how best these things are resolved as soon as possible. I mean, because it has a ramification for the financial sector.
Right. I mean, one of the demands the members of the Locked Up Investment Holders Forum, one of the demands they are making is that the central bank takes over these financial institutions because obviously they are unable to pay them their locked up investments. They had the central bank on Monday during the MPC briefing say they are going to move to deal with some of these issues. Do you think the central bank has not been swift enough in handling the matters? I mean, what would you say is the challenge from their perspective?
I think no one can blame the central bank. The central bank has come under considerable pressure. If you look at the DDEP and you look at these recapitalization that took place earlier, the central bank hasn't gotten it easy at all. It has gone through a lot of challenges. So I won't basically blame them. I believe that the finance ministry, the regulators, should have been more proactive, not only Bank of Ghana. Because you see, if you look at Bank of Ghana, what it went through the DDEP and what it went through the recapitalization they got, to me, they have done quite a lot, but their best is not good enough. But I won't blame them. I blame the oversight ministry to make sure that these things are resolved as soon as possible to alleviate the problems, the pressure which these people are going through.
What would you say, what does this say about the resilience of our financial sector, taking into consideration where we are coming from, the financial sector cleanup, and, government support for these harder banks and financial institutions, if you like? For instance, the government touted earlier this year that it had released some 2.5 billion to shore up the capital of CBG, for instance. How resilient is the financial sector? Is government doing enough to fix those issues that some of these financial institutions have been faced with over time?
Well, sitting where I sit and with my experience in the industry, I've worked in the industry for a very long time. The word resilient, we need to look at it. Because even with those that they went through recapitalization, if you ask them today, it is not as easy as we are talking about. Even the recent one that the minister said he's giving them 2.8 billion, or I've forgotten the figure, for their solvency or what to buff to give them the beef up. The investment climate is not very good. So if you give only bonds, you are not helping the institution. What we should have done, we should have structured in such a way that 50% cash injection and 50% bond, because the bonds are currently, Ghana bonds are untradeable. Let me put it this way. Nobody in this country would like to buy a bond because of the experience we've just had over the last 2 years. So if you give a bank a bond and it cannot trade to have liquidity, seriously, you haven't solved the problem. We have done what we call creative accounting. In accounting, we call it creative. You have created as if you have resolved the issue. But if you go into that bank's details, they are having liquidity challenges, not solvency. The solvency is there, the liquidity is there. So they have partially solved the solvency, but they have left the liquidity. And the liquidity will require the structuring of the bond into 50% in cash or 40% in cash, 60% in bond, because the bonds are not tradable. If they were tradable, at least I will tell the minister that you have done your job. But once the bonds are not tradable at the moment, they are holding it as a paper because nobody wants to buy it. So when people talk about resilient about the financial sector, those of us sitting back and doing research, we find that language a bit something. I won't say I won't say something, but I would say that to me, they are not resilient.
Okay, one final question now I want to ask you is one of the headlines we're picking up from the MPC briefing on Monday, where the central bank says that it's going to increase the cash reserve ratio of banks to boost lending and also stabilize the city. Your thoughts on that move and how effective it would be, seeing that the understanding is that many banks are sitting on lots of cash?
No, I think in November 2023, the governor was very good. He did an exceptional thing. He introduced this reserve ratio, cash reserve ratio, 15%, hoping that the banks would actually lend money to the private sector. But if you look at the figures that I've just gotten, the total deposit in the banking sector was 224 billion. Out of this 224 billion, only 73 went to credit. And out of the 73, 63 went to the private sector, which are very marginal. So I think to curb inflation, what the governor is trying to do with this is one of the policy use curbing inflation, controlling it. You want to withhold a lot of, the banks withhold a lot of, you want to take control of some of their cash so that they will not be doing, say, buying government bills. Because governor have seen that the banks have been financing government through the treasury bills. He thinks that instead of you lending to the private sector, which will not fuel inflation, you're only buying bills. So for me, the methodology used by governor, to me, it is commendable. It's very commendable, because if you have inflation of 23% and over, and you want to control, you need to have policies that would take control a structural, you call it the structural liquidity, excess liquidity in the system, and you mop it up. When you mop it up, then you'll be able to say inflation will come down. So governor is saying that I am not going to allow you to do what you're doing. I'm going to change the loan deposit ratios. Those of you in 55, I'll add 15%. Those of you in 40, I'll add 20%.
Okay.
Is to control the excessive structural liquidity in the system, to control inflation. And again, to make sure that they are not lending to treasury bills, because the treasury bills is also compounding government as interest expense. So government is telling them, I would prefer you to lend to the private sector. And that would also drive down lending rates. That will, if everybody was competing for treasury bill, private sector lending, you know, it can drive down interest rate for the private sector, and that will help the private sector as the engine of growth. And if we don't go what the governor is saying, I think we're going to have a challenge with the private sector. The private sector are cash strapped, and it is only by putting measures like what the governor has done today or yesterday to tell the banks that I am in control. Okay. I am in control. I am the regulator. I think inflation is getting out of top. Private sector is not getting that. You're only buying treasury bills. And possibly they can even be holding, you know, if you have excess cash liquidity, would you be surprised? People would even buy the foreign currency. I really want them at the background. Yeah,
okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Richmond Ituahine, a banking consultant there. I appreciate you talking to us about developments in the financial sector as well. I mean, we've been talking about the protest held by the Locked Up Investment Holders Forum. We told you earlier about a clash at the Ministry of Finance. Thankfully, we are joined by James Avedji, who is covering that story for us, James. And so how did that end? Are there still clashes happening? It looks very peaceful right now where you are.
Yes, Daryl, the matter has been resolved. And finally, some members of the group have been allowed to go into the premises of the finance ministry, but they just returned and spoken to us. What they've been telling us is that they have not been able to meet the minister. Personnel there tells them that the minister is not present. They requested to meet any of the deputies. They were told that none of the deputy is available. The chief director is also not available. No official of the finance ministry is available to speak to them. And so they have not been able to meet them to talk with them. Now, the reason they came here was that the original plan was to march from the NDK financial offices at the Accra Sports Stadium to the BoG to tell them their issues. They had already presented some document to them on what they want. They want the BoG to revoke the licenses of the financial institutions in question and pay investors their money. And so they got to the BoG. The crowd was diverted to the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park, but the leadership went to the BoG to meet the governor himself, according to the briefing they've given us after they've come back. And the governor gave them the assurance that they are ready as BoG to revoke the licenses, but they need some assurance from the finance ministry, from government through the finance ministry that, yes, government has the money that they will use to pay these investors before they revoke the licenses. So that assurance is what they have come here to get from the finance ministry and send that feedback to the BoG to see what the BoG will do about that before they will not be able to meet them. They said they will come back in the next 2 weeks to meet them to see the way forward. Daryl.
Thanks for bringing us up to speed, James Avedji. I appreciate your update there. You're watching The Marketplace. Let's turn to some other stories you're following for you. The Finance Minister, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, has charged the Ghana Investment Promotion Center to be heavy on domestic investments to support government's agenda for macroeconomic stability. This, the minister says, will aid in increasing the country's gross domestic investment, which was estimated to cover 14.5% of the country's GDP in 2023. He was speaking at the inauguration of the Mutual Prosperity Partnership Committee for Private Sector.
The Mutual Prosperity Partnership Committee for the Private Sector, the Finance Minister indicated that government is poised to create a conducive environment for local investors.
The conversation and the work of the GMPP so far appears to have centered on attracting foreign direct investment and also addressing challenges that are faced by foreign investors. But I'm very happy to have listened to the Prof that it is also about domestic Ghanaian investors. And that is very critical. And so to that end, I want the conversation to be deepened around domestic investment as well, especially faced with the kind of global challenges that we have today. Foreign direct investment continues to be critical. But until they arrive, let's make the environment better and better for those who are currently operating in this environment. And this is why these conversations must be deepened also at the local, domestic level.
He also charged the Ghana Revenue Authority and other authorities at Ghana's ports to ensure a seamless process within that space.
GRA has also started the process of repositioning itself to become business friendly. The issues that have been complained about by businesses are being addressed. And then I have to also say that I went to Tema Port yesterday and interacted with the staff of Customs as well as the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority on matters relating to cost of doing business at the port, which many investors have also complained about, as well as how to address delays, the turnaround time at the port.
Finance Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam also charged the committee to also explore opportunities to support small and medium enterprises.
Because 80% of our economy is SME. 70% of our growth is from SME. There is no country, whether the United States of America or Germany or Japan, that has grown without SMEs. And so I have indicated clearly that that is my focus going forward. How do we make access to financing easy for them? How do we create market for them, both in Ghana and the export market? How do we ensure that the regulatory challenges SMEs are facing are addressed? And so we intend to also do SME Growth and Opportunity Fund. And so I will rely on most of you around the table to serve on these two committees for the Mineral Development Bank and the SME Growth and Opportunity Fund.
For Joy Business, James Ishen.
All right, let's talk tech next. I'm joined on Zoom by Lead for Eyes of Africa, Henry Kobler. I want to start, Henry, with a project that seems very laudable, but has a lot of buts and question marks to it. President Kwawu revealing that government plans to distribute smart tablets to 1.3 million senior high school students nationwide under the newly launched Ghana Smart Schools project. What you make of it, and is that what we need right now?
Brilliant idea, but I don't think that it's really one of the things that we really want to talk about, especially when we're struggling with the 3SHS concept in itself and how much we sort of spend. And I'm actually waiting for the values that's going to come out of this particular project. But again, there are quite a number of concerns that's sort of raising. We're looking at, the cost, inflation cost. We've seen this being done where we had RLG coming, with some level of project where government was sort of sponsoring and all of that. We've seen that come to play and how it sort of ended. We've seen how usually this project gets into sole source. And so I'm sort of going to look at how the procurement processes are going to be. Again, the sustainability of this project is very important. We're looking at how this project could transcend just beyond just the political landscape where it gets to the election year. So there are quite a lot of promises that sort of comes in and all of that. Again, for me, the recurring cost is very important for me, how we're going to take care of the recurring costs that's sort of going to come in. You're having applications that are going to sit on these tablets. We're looking at who is going to sponsor them, how is government going to aid the production of the content that is going to sit on these materials. Again, for me, cybersecurity and monitoring is very important. We're having almost about 1.3 million students on these platforms. Who is monitoring their progress? What kind of data is being gathered about them and their curriculums as well? Gets to be very important for me. Again, we're also looking at how accessible is going to be the curriculum that is sort of going to run this, and the assessment that is going to be generally nationwide to be able to ascertain how students are sort of faring with the curriculum that is going to sit on it. My concern major, again, is teacher training and the consistency that is going to come in. I mean, trust me, IT runs so fast. I don't know how the training of some of these teachers is going to be able to teach these children how to sort of handle these gadgets and be able to make use of the content that sits on it. And again, how are we preparing the universities to sort of handle these students that are being trained? I mean, we're not just giving them tablets, you're now trying to get them to be more tech savvy. Our universities and the curriculums that sit there going to be able to fit when these children get out of school, I think is very important. And major of it is the job factor. If we're training these people to be able to be tech savvy, how is our job market also preparing itself to be able to grab these children out of school? So it's quite a number of issues that has to be discussed and blown up, and not necessarily just going through giving tablets to students. There are quite a lot of things that we sort of need to look at. But again, I think that the conversation can start with this, but I'm just only waiting for the numbers that's going to come out of this project.
All right, we have 45 seconds. Your take on this next headline that we are following, Cabinet giving approval for the establishment of a shared neutral 4G and 5G network for all telecom operators in the country. That sounds good. Apparently, there's not going to be an auction.
Very good. I mean, we've had quite a number of telecommunication private sector pointers coming to trying to set up. We've seen busy internet, we've seen Selfline and all of those things. I mean, people have been trying to get into this space and get out of the whole competition or monopoly that sits with them. And so I think as long overdue, we're going to look at how it's going to play out. I'm hoping that quite a number of private businesses are going to jump onto this and have the shared responsibility which comes in. Generally, I think that it will help us go forward and also drive, pushing the proper drive with the digitalization we seek to achieve.
You're really good with sticking with time. Thank you so much, Henry Kobler, there, a lead for Eyes of Africa. Before we go, let's check the headlines for you. Can we, or shall we? myjoyonline.com/business has the day's latest stories from over there. Bank's appetite for T-bills to drop, loan book to expand. Also, NIC committed to boosting insurance coverage. That's according to the acting commissioner from the Joy Business NIC Insurance Dialogue. My name is Daryl. Thanks for watching. We'll be back same time tomorrow.